what I've seen with a lot of I've worked with a few quite successful actors that have done well in their career, but they've used their own, you could say, pain or emotional body to bring to the roles. And I don't think that's healthy at all, because you're just like picking the scab off a wound and using those emotions to generate art. And I feel like that's not really artful. That's just like using your own emotional baggage you haven't dealt with to bring to the role. Does that make sense?
Like I picture that like a person that has one particular character that they can play really well, and the reason why they can play that character so well is that they actually just jump into their past trauma or whatever it is, and at that moment they are in character and they can play that really well. And
I don't think that's a skill-based art.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas there are some very talented people that really work on a lot of other skills and bring craft to things. And then alongside that, I've been just working. I started coaching movement years ago, and just getting pretty bad results for many years in terms of what I consider bad results. Because I'm coaching acting and going, oh, that's getting natural. But then I'm coaching movement. I'm going, wow, that's just so unnatural. Even though people are doing all the exercises really well, it's kind of, in terms of like a natural human, it just doesn't look relaxed. Whether it's a yoga pose or any other kind of movement, it's like that looks really like, I don't know, rigid and tight and over cerebral and concentrated. I was like, wow, that doesn't look like, where's the fun? Where's the lightness? Where's the groundedness? Where's all these qualities we want to work on? And so I started to see like a gap between these two areas where a lot of people are just instructing themselves what to do in their lives. Kind of like, imagine if you were like in a relationship and you were getting told what to do all the time. And imagine if that was kind of like your body and your mind was telling you what to do. And I was like, wow, that's no fun for the body. Whereas I feel like there's so much wisdom, intelligence in our unconscious, which sits in the body, that we kind of almost need to listen to. So just exploring that, and I don't have any answers at all, but just really curious of how we can do that better. And so just trying to learn and research and play and use studio as a laboratory and learn off other people and learn what other people are doing. And I guess if we keep gathering information together, we'll kind of get, some leeway back into those places. If that makes any sense.
I would guess that. So what you observed in the beginning is, yes, these people did exactly what you said, and they were doing and nailing what was required, but somehow it looked really unnatural because they were coming from maybe really logical, like just a logical way of dealing with it, just in the head, rather than actually coming from the heart, I guess. And so how did you shift? Like, what were the tools that you found that would actually bring people into, I guess, a more genuine way of portraying a particular pose or or character?
Well, I guess I don't really have all the answers for that. I'm still looking for those things. But looking at, I love working with people that have had, like, in the middle of serious traumas, whether they've got a disease or they're dying or they've had a stroke, because there's something really beautiful those people bring, like an honesty where all their personality starts to fall away and they're just dealing with, like, more with themselves and what they've got to go through. And I just find I learn so much off being around those people because there's such a stillness and an honesty and a reverence for life that what they do have. And so I learn a lot from those people and trying to bring that kind of energy to myself and then others. So, it feels like things can go deeper in that place, but also get lighter at the same time. But so I play with a lot with different movements, different rhythms, different vocal exercises. I feel a lot sits in the voice. And, with quantum science now, we know we're vibrating so much. We can be in particle or we can be in wave. And when we're in that wave form, there's a lot of movement and a lot of frequency happening in the body. And that's where I feel like working with sound can really help to first let us learn where we're vibrating, resonating, how we're resonating at, and then we can actually start to get guided by that in different ways. So a lot of listening. Like I say, I don't have a lot of answers, but there's a lot of curiosity that keeps coming. And as we get more and more, it's like, wow, there's more curiosity. I feel like we have a lot more potential than we're living. A lot more potential. Yeah. I mean, I reckon most of us are living like maybe in 5% of our potential.
Really?
Vibrational.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So the people you're working now with, you're still working with actors as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you see someone coming in, you were talking about all the different facets that you can see, including the rhythm and the frequency of a person and so on. So do you have a bit of an idea of what you actually see and what might go on with that person? I'm just thinking, I know in Chinese medicine there's this saying like a Chinese medicine doctor would hear by how the person comes in and opens the door what's going on with that person, which I think like, wow, they're really in tune with whatever they're in tune with. And I envision you being a little bit like, okay, you want to do acting, or you want to get better. I can see there's a limp or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
something.
definitely for a start, I'll always try and get people to go and see like someone Chinese medicine or acupuncture.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So I think that's really helpful. And I've done a bit of study in that area, but no, I don't really know what I'm doing there. So, and then I'll speak to that, acupuncturist and get feedback from them. But yeah, I will look at person like a character, like how they open the door, how they bend down, but a lot from the vocal tone as well. Like you can really hear rhythms and melodies and patterns in someone. And even to the point of if they start to, drop their voice at the end of each sentence, you can feel that the energy keeps dropping off every time they're saying something in their life. It's going, you can just feel what's going to come in the rest of the day because that's the vibration that's coming from them. And then some people are the opposite. They're like, everything is going up at the end. And after this, I'm going to go and get lunch. And then something else is going to come into my life this afternoon. And you can just see by the energy that's going to go that way, what's going to be their response to whatever comes at them that day. So we have, I feel, so many patterns in how we respond to our environment. And I guess that's a lot of that is conditioned both from our DNA and from our history. And I feel like, it's how do we find tools to grow through those patterns. Yeah, that's where I get passionate. Like, wow, what's it going to take to get through those patterns and wake up to something different where it's not the same way as you've done yesterday and the day before. And part of that is finding things that I think we love and support and serve us. And I tend to know what that is for me, but for other people, I think it's important to find what really juices them up in a way that the energies can be almost spontaneous.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And when I think about this voice thing, when I listen to myself, I always think it's my voice, being quite vulnerable here. Like my voice always sounds like I try to please, and I know I didn't like confrontation for a long time, and it's still not my favorite thing. For some people, it's just like, look, I'm just honest, and therefore, I just go into confrontation. For me, it's definitely not my favorite spot to be in. And when I listen to my voice, I can hear that I use my voice to smooth people, to come across just in a certain way. But and it might be not obvious for the general public, whatever. But if you really would listen, or when I listen, I can see this is intentionally done, probably subconsciously now, but it's still intentionally done. Hey, yeah. So would you have? Sorry, you go.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's such a great awareness to even to feel that. And I think we're all going to do that in some way, and that's fine. I know sometimes I'll be in a situation where I'm more emotional than I want to portray, and so I'll put on more of a lightness or something, or I'll withdraw back, and it really affects my voice, which is fine. These are just ways we cope with our fears of how we're going to be received. And I guess the other thing is to not try and override that, and I think the first thing is just noticing. Look what I'm doing. Here I am, and I'm trying to be more upbeat than I really feel. That's okay. I'm just I'll notice that. That's a really good start to notice that. And then start noticing where else is that. And then after that, maybe when I'm on my own, I'll start to feel, and I'll just play with sound. I'll just start to go, well, what's the real sound? It might be a sigh, and then it might be, find out what's below that. And then that might start to move something. And I feel that when we do that, then we give more permission to all the sounds to be there. And I guess there's so much conditioning in our culture to be a certain way that we don't want to show certain, parts of our voice. We don't want to be like that, or we don't want to, it's ugly sounds. We don't want to give those sounds because imagine people would be repelled. Yeah. So even if we're feeling that, we hold them in, and that's where stagnation starts. And then when the stagnation starts, the flow doesn't go through areas, then I think that's the start of all disease and illness.
Wow,
So I think it's such a crucial area to become aware of in our daily lives where we're holding, not give ourselves a hard time for it, but just noticing where that is.
Yeah.
And that awareness can help something else happen.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So if you let's say you actually meet someone and you figure out like, okay, there's suppression of some sort happening. Would you come from the point of view, well, if you want to act, you need to work on that wherever that came from, or would you just give them general tools that you actually don't have to name the problem and it's still lifts everything up and it becomes a non-issue?
Yeah, good. I think that's a great question. And like, I think every case is so different. Yeah. But for me, one of the things I realize is there's two things. Like, first, there's the root of where that started that block, or when did I start closing down in that way, or when was it not okay to be that way?
Yeah.
And maybe I just I just notice the pattern first. Wow, look, I'm holding back here because I feel ashamed. Oh, that's a good start. I'm just noticing that I'm holding back. Great, that's a full start. And then through that, I may start to become aware of, whoa, maybe this started when I was a child, or maybe it's from something else, or I picked it up off someone else, or, as long as there's a conscious change somewhere, I think there needs to be an awareness and consciousness for a shift, and there needs to be a pattern shift. If that makes sense. For me, it's like I noticed that something happened to me back then and I started doing that, but if I don't work on how I am right now as well, I could still go back to those old patterns.
Right.
Yeah. Even though I may have shifted that energy, there's still the habit of, say, pulling back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that habit is a completely different thing. And to give you an example, like just on a physical level, you knock over the glass, you sprain your wrist or something, and you put your arm in plaster, and so you stop using your shoulder as much because it's in plaster, and then you get the arm out of plaster, but then the range you've held it might not come back the same unless you actually get some help to help that move again.
Yeah, right.
So you may have fixed the problem, but you've also got the habit you've got to deal with as well.
Yeah,
and I think we're walking around with traumas and compensatory habits as well, and we need to address both of those things. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of it sits in the unconscious, and that's why going through vibrational things, through vocal things, through rhythmical things, through vocal things, movement, relating exercises, that's, I think, helps those patterns come back to like more rhythmical, more groovy. We get more into dopamine states where we feel more alive, and we can kind of bounce off each other a little bit more.
So where would the dopamine come from? Is it just by feeling good, or by letting go? I know you know a little bit about it, so I just thought.
I know, and I really don't either. Like I'm so not.
I know you're not a scientist, but you've studied.
And so I've got a lot of things that I find with people, but I really don't know like what is actually happening.
Well,
but one thing that I notice, especially with a lot of trauma, is that people shut down that what you'd call it's great to be alive in the moment, but in a little way, like so. I feel like healthy dopamine is kind of just coming through a little bit all the time. So it's just lightly uplifting. So, if you think of a fire, if you've got a fire that's just humming away with nice embers and it's just going all the time, it's like, oh, it's going to keep you warm. It's going to feel good. Whereas, you put like a bit of like petrol on the fire or some dry branches, it's going to whoosh up and then it'll die down and it'll be a little bit more dead after that. And I feel like most of us, we are addicted to certain things to give us that kind of hit, and we go, whoa, whether it's, computers or whether it's like foods or substances. But after that, we get that kind of drop. But there's some things that I realize that don't drop. And one of those things is relating to gravity. So if you can feel gravity, like if you're sitting, you can kind of go, if you just rock it a little bit forwards and backwards, and you can find your line of gravity. Already, if you can find a rhythm in that, then it's like, that's the easy place. And then you go off it, it's a little bit harder. You come back and it's the easy place. And then when you're standing too, if you've got this kind of relaxed thing, your body's kind of almost invisibly swaying, and there's chemicals in your body that are rebalancing yourself with that gravity line. And that brings that sense of like uplifting. I mean, that's such an oversimplified thing. And of course, there's so many other ingredients to go with it as well. Lifestyle, food, connections, rest, enjoyable activities. There's many things, life purpose, but that's really a supporting thing, I feel like, that gets missed a lot, is that rhythmical quality. And if we're not rocking, then it's just like, oh, well, our heart's beating and we're breathing. So even when we're lying in bed, that's generating that from the rhythm of that breath rhythm. So I feel like the rhythm is really like, I feel like we've lost a lot of groove in our culture. Like we've become really, and I guess that's quite cerebral, is like we've got all these ideas that when you come back into like nature and life, that everything is like rhythmical. The seasons are rhythmical, the days are rhythmical, the way people move is rhythmical, the way we breathe is rhythmical, and I think natural thoughts also have a rhythm as well, whereas kind of imposed and compensatory thoughts have different, like they lose their musicality in a sense. I feel like everything comes back to music.
I'm just thinking about my two daughters. One is 5, one is just under 1, and both of them have their own rhythm. And the 5-year-old, when she would sing. She always has a rhythm to it that it has a pattern to it, And I always thought, that will be just as much as she knows, and that's it. But it's actually not really. It's just her natural groove anyway, and that comes through sounds. And with the little one, she has a clicking that she often, when she's really happy, she just clicks away. But then when I look at her swaying, she's just about to start walking, but she stands already. It fits all in. It fits like there's one rhythm that this being holds that is expressed between the move, singing, or clicking. And it gives me, like, I look at them and think, I want to adapt that. I actually have to do the same because somehow it relaxes, definitely me listening to it. Maybe because they're my daughters, I don't know. But there's certainly something in it for me as well.
Wow. A little master, hey?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And then life starts.
Yeah.
But that's good too.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much wisdom in some of these young people coming through. I feel like they're like the teachers for us. Yeah, I feel like there's just so much like unconscious wisdom they're bringing to help us.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Hey, while you were saying in our culture, you see that the rhythm is lost. When I think about, like people from Jamaica, for example, they have just a particular way of, talking and moving. And it's again, this whole thing, it's not just the talk, it's not just the voice that changes and has a particular melody to it, but it's all of that. Have you seen that in different cultures, that there are different particular patterns or rhythms that you have observed? Really conscious?
I have actually. I mean, I think I've said this to you before. I'm actually really racist in a way that I look at cultures and I try and take the best thing from that culture and steal it into my own like practice and for groups. And there's some things like I just love some of the things of some of the African, I guess, nations have this real groundedness, and that it's just it feels so connected, and it's like this unconscious rhythm that's rolling all the time underneath everything. And I feel that kind of comes into the speech and comes into the movement and comes into the mind and comes into the activities. And there's a real beautiful relaxation and flow that comes with that rhythm. And then I'm really fascinated by Japanese culture, just because I just feel like there's such a uniqueness there in the Japanese, and the way they can just have this group mind and do things en masse, like you see a school of fish. I feel like the Japanese have this amazing way to like just operate together that I feel like, in this part of the world, and where I'm from, New Zealand, we don't have that. We're way more individual. And so I feel like that's an amazing skill to have that. And in terms of energy centers, I feel like, like the Japanese, again, they can really, and Chinese to some extent, their hara, their sacral chakra, they can develop that, and that seems quite developed and quite strong in a focused way. Whereas you've got like, say, South American culture, it's got much more of like a lilting, flowing, grooving, responsive. That's such a different rhythm to that center. And I guess like the heart and the hara of the South Americans has got this real beautiful, warm kind of grooviness, whereas you could say the Japanese, like with their third eye and even their solar plexus, are really, and then their base connects out. So there's just these different combinations that I feel are like, really, really strong. The Italians are really external with their heart energy, and it's like, that's just like, it's right out, it's right out there. And I love that. I love that about there. Yeah. So I think different cultures have these different kind of energies, these frequencies, these rhythms that they have developed through who knows where it came from lifestyle, history, geography.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating. Yeah.
Would be exciting, and maybe that's what you do, is like you see that a person might just need that little bit more of the South American thrive there, and you would just say, okay, let's just pretend to be that person for a little bit, and maybe that balances the overall personality for that moment out. Something like that.
Yeah, that's that's the kind of silly stuff that you can play with,
Yeah.
And I think if it's just nonsense, it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? You don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
You play, and then eventually, hopefully, something deeper, more honest will wake up.
Mm-hmm.
So really, I feel like a lot of the things I'm doing is just really exploring as like an on-ramp to someone's internal intelligence of their own natural highway of intelligence. So they're trying to find, I feel like people are so smart and they've got these unique gifts. And we're schooled in this way where we're kind of generically learning the same things. And it's kind of, of course, there's a lot of great education systems that don't do that. But as a real generalization, there's in terms of a lot of the schooling in the West, there's a lot of industrialized models that really, I don't feel like they have the kind of intelligence to wake up the unique gift that soul is and really let that shine, unapologetically come to what they're here to be on the planet.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like what a fascinating thing that if we can start to bring our minds together, bring our hearts together, bring our unconscious wisdom together, and start to kind of create a environment to hold space for those sort of beings to come as the next wave of evolutionary guides to the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess theater and playing in theater and being an actor then allows you to actually explore all these different emotions and movements and characters and different races. And that way, I guess you become... I don't know, if there's anything clogged up, let's put it that way, because you move through all the different ones. If there is something, they will have to deal with it if they want to play that role.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice way of looking at it. If you're going to take, I just call these silly exercises. If you use these as a way to grow more into yourself, I think that's a great way to do it, versus if you use yourself and your life and your history to try and improve the art or that. I think that's not such a great way to go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're putting yourself as and I just see that I've done that a lot, and I see a lot of people. They'll put them even just like in a simple physical exercise. The people will disappear, and they'll put the exercise as more important than themselves. Oh, if I can concentrate on getting this stretch good, or get the song right, or do you know what I mean? And then suddenly, where's the person gone?
Yeah,
it's just the activities become more important than the being.
Yes.
And so I feel like if we flip that around and go, what's happening with the being?
Yeah.
And then from that, we can do this, whatever the thing is. And however that goes is however that goes. But this is more important. And there's a consistency to finding out something about who we are in that.
Yeah.
And then from then, when we come together and start to collaborate, we're coming together with all our real unique gifts, not just a generic idea of, cloning or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then I feel like real musicality can happen, and the group mind can start to really develop in a more intelligent way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You've seen the group mind happening when you teach groups?
Quite often, I love to collaborate, and I see it in a lot of other people too. Like when something happens that when a groove comes, and say a song comes, it's not even words, it's just sounds. And you see it in a lot of cultures where they do this, where they just they start to sense into each other, and then suddenly something comes, and then a group song happens, and sometimes everyone's just one note in that song, and it's just that's a really cool vibe to get.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we talk about frequencies of certain things, I know you've looked into that as well. I mean, I could probably talk about acting for the rest of it, because I think it's so easy to relate to, because we watch movies, or we act ourselves.
We're always act. I feel like we're always acting in some way.
Yeah. And I think it's really powerful. Actually, let's stay on that topic for one moment. It's really powerful to be yourself and be really, not wearing a mask all the time, or at all. And I found the people that you meet, sometimes, let's say when I'm really stressed, I wear a mask and I just try to cope. There's certainly a coping mechanism. And if I meet people who are completely open and genuinely them, there is sometimes too much energy to take on. You know what I mean? It's just maybe also because it challenges me, I don't know. But there's certainly that aspect to it. I found that fascinating to see that, how do you dance, between that? Yeah. Because what would happen? I would probably break out in tears if I really would, let's say I'm just coping. And, at that moment where I have this mask and say, okay, if I really open up to that person, I will probably break in tears. That would be probably the most healthiest things to do, yeah?
Yeah, look, I so agree. I feel like there's no wrong. There's just consequences. Yeah. I'm going to wear masks and I'll see I've got a mask.
Yeah.
So that's just, it's just once there's awareness, then there can be hopefully some growth in the consciousness and then a chance to change patterning. But I guess the first thing is just to be aware of, I think those things serve us, like there's different coping strategies. And it can be like the world can be, some days can be overwhelming, to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But then there are things I feel like we can do. Like I feel like when the internal music gets louder, like the real internal music, when it's just your music that is not changing, those essential qualities that you were born with and you'll die with, and life really doesn't affect those much. When that gets stronger and louder, the outside is not as overwhelming. And I've seen it in people's eyes, with anxiety, and they'll come and they'll go from this place of like, I don't know how I can handle the world, to I don't know how can the world handle me, And then it's like, that's an exciting place, because it's like, then now how can I harmonize with these strong energies out there? And it's like, I feel like for me, the game is harmony. How do we find harmony, whether we're using masks or compensating or not? How can we find some harmony? Yeah, like it's so much of it's about relating with our traumas there or not. Yeah.
So when you were talking earlier about sort of people that are dying or that, have really big health challenges or challenges in trauma, is that one of those, can that be a trigger for people to have that, okay, I get back to myself and, I don't care anymore what the world thinks. I just want to be myself.
Oh, I see that a lot. I see that's what I feel like so beautiful around people when big shocks happen in their lives, where they respond in a way that's getting more honest, I guess. Sometimes people, I see when they get closer to the end, there's something really beautiful happens to the energy, like kind of a letting go. It's really amazing. Like it's a really beautiful, quite a reverent space. Wow.
Fascinating, eh? Probably not understood, but yeah.
I had this a family friend, and this guy, he was a beautiful man, diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and they only gave him not long to live. And I spoke to his daughter, and this is in Auckland in New Zealand, and she like flew me over there, said, look, can you, and I was thinking, I'll go over there and I'll do this nice thing with the family so everyone can, speak their piece, and he can, go around, everyone tell him how much he loves them, and they can, get the peace. Because I never forget Stephen Jenkinson, and he had this beautiful thing where he said that what people really need when they're passing is they need to know that they're going to be held in love when they pass. They need to know they're going to be held, so they're carried. And they're going to be carried. And it just really stuck with me. So I thought, I'll go and I'll make sure we set this up so this guy knows he can just relax into the hearts, and everyone knows that he's going to be carried. And anyway, went over there, and he didn't want to see anyone, didn't even want me to come in. Eventually we went in and had a cup of tea, and then we just started hanging out, having a great time. We played with all the staff, we did all these things, and that was like nearly 3 years ago, and he's still alive. So we never got to do that circle yet. But maybe it's something, like you say, maybe he hasn't said what he needs to say yet. But it's been an amazing journey for him, watching him go through mining through all the past parts of his life that he hadn't really dealt with, all the difficult things from his childhood and the middle of his life, and amazing to watch people go through those things and balance the books. Yeah.
When you were saying that, like, what did you say is all origin or all root of disease was the lack of.
Like stagnation?
Yeah, maybe that, and all that's right. You mentioned that earlier. And so as these areas get stagnant and, create that, let's say disease starts. And so what he would have done is sort of unraveling it again and, like area by area, taking issue away. And that would be probably the reason why he's still alive, because he actually dealt with it, and disease might just go away.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot when people just do the work on that stuff. It's amazing what changes happen. Yeah. But the thing is, no one can do it for anyone else, that stuff. You can support them and hold space, but people have to do that work themselves, which I feel like is hard when our schooling from or at least my schooling that I went through was all external assessment.
Outsource the responsibility.
It's all that. How do I do? I'll do my best and I'll give it to the teacher and they'll come back and tell me how well I do.
Yeah.
So there's no like, how well am I going? What do I need to do? It's all giving it away. Yeah. So
living in Byron Bay, in this area, that people deal with this quite a bit. They are open to it and want to work on themselves. I'm sure you also meet people that get sort of attached to that process of trying to unraveling and trying to find that trauma, and then it just never ends. And how is that? Like, do you have an answer on that, or just an observation that you've done? Yeah,
I've been the worst person at doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the funny thing was, like, it really showed. Like when I first started doing acting, like I started years ago, and it was really natural, and I got all these offers for shows and things, and then I got really ill and I was in bed for a couple of years. And then I came out and my hormones were way out of whack. And I didn't really have the same internal intelligence chemically. And so I started studying. And the more and more I studied, the more I learnt, the worse I got.
Oh, wow.
And I got worse and worse and worse. And then I started to notice this thing. And now it shows with quantum physics, they show that observing something changes the action of it. Yeah, and so there's this thing with self-consciousness, whereas as soon as you become too self-conscious, you're not going to get the flow. Like all that wave particle, all that like intelligence gets interfered with when we're self-conscious. And so it's so interesting that as knowledge comes, we have to learn that letting go we're talking about at the same time to stay balanced.
Wow.
And it's a tricky thing.
Yeah, right.
Because we're going around, we're learning more things, and then people are getting overwhelmed because we're holding on to things. And so you almost have to get more almost irreverent as you get more learned in a sense. And I feel like the old masters where they say, wow, the master bows down to the beginner. I really get that because there's something so beautiful and innocent about, someone who's beginning something.
Yeah.
And they don't know anything. And there's just this magical... And that's like babies and life force and great acting. It's like you don't know what's going to happen. And so as I discovered that I did a lot of Japanese training, and then I came to a lot of sound healing and a lot of vocal stuff that was improvised before structure. And then things started, and I started to learn all these great ways to get back to that kind of like, you're kind of aware, but you're kind of not self-conscious, or you don't really care so much. But I feel like I know that journey really well, and it's so easy to become too aware or conscious, and suddenly you're actually stifling your own energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So I feel like it's such a fine line between like just unconscious and not even aware of what's going on, and like too conscious here. And there's this in the middle. There's this magical zone.
Yeah. I see that.
It's a great area to play with, I think.
Yeah. And I guess it's real in alchemy, like to let that in, let let's say something negative that you see, and some bad things. Like when I see doctors and they talk to me about all the things that can go wrong, that's what they see. They see all these kids, for example, like a good friend of mine is pediatrician, and he's a really balanced guy, love him. But at the same time, he would give me more like the worst case scenario, and to balancing that out and still have a positive outlook for his own kids and for his own health. That's an interesting balance, right? Because he knows about it and he observes all the things that are not right, and then feeling confident that it won't happen to him. And
Yeah. I think I love watching musicians when they're like they just show you that zone so well. Like there's this thing, and really good athletes too. But you see it with musicians; they're kind of connected to their fellow musicians, and they're in this groove where they're kind of aware to a certain point, but they're also free enough to be able to improvise. And I feel like there's something really cool. Like it's music. Yeah, it's great,
and therefore probably also a great therapy, eh?
Yeah, I think so. I think music therapy is really powerful.
Yeah,
really powerful.
Ever since I started dancing, I dance 5 rhythms. It's certainly something that changed my life and my personality, because it, it goes through quite a few different emotions, speeds, and all the rest of it. So it touches quite a few different parts of the personality, and it really helps to get unstuck, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's an art in that too, whether it's with music or movement or voice or painting, where there's a thing where it's like there's structure.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to have some structure. So, because if I said to you, just dance any way whatsoever, it's almost too overwhelming because you've got too many choices. You don't know where to start. But if I said, okay, imagine now that you're holding like a little baby bird and just dance that with your hands. Now suddenly you've got a little bit of thing there, or you're pushing a shopping trolley and you can dance. You'll actually be more creative with the limitation than if I give you free range. And so there's a real art to how much limitation to give people, and it's an art to not give too much. So you're just stuck and you can only do this one movement. Or you can be free, and there's a real nice thing in there. And again, you look back to like so many traditional like dances and things, and there's things where there's like everyone comes together at one point, but in between they can do these other things. And there's a really nice balance of like freedom, spontaneity, and connected structure.
I wonder what your take on this is. I did a workshop at a festival once for 90 minutes. You were only allowed to have a movement going on for 10 seconds and had to change, and then extreme breathing on top of that. And I guess...
Love it.
Yeah. I mean, what would that do? It doesn't give you much chance to hold on to a rhythm or a particular...
Yeah, well, that kind of thing for me is great for, say, breaking any patterns. So it serves to that purpose really wonderfully. But I guess if you want to go deeper into something, like one of my teachers, he said to me, try and do something exactly the same 300 times. And in that exploration, you'll learn, because you won't do it, there'll be some difference. Whether it's like whether it's your thought or where it's your breath or the wind and in that you will learn so much about variation in trying to do that the same. So like there's so many ways.
Yeah. And I'm sure you can also like as in micro, so it would be in macro. So when you say like breaking a pattern, maybe people who want to break a pattern, how some people just change radically for a while and, in all different directions. Think, they completely lost it. They're hanging out with these. No, now they don't anymore. Now they do this. Now they're into that. And it's normally a phase, it depends on the person, but it's a phase. And then suddenly afterwards, they either fall back into sort of their old pattern, but are happy now, or they have found their own groove, right? But I think it's the same in actually how we live life, which would tell me that the frequency and the rhythm in the small is mirrored just in the big of life just as much, eh?
Yeah, nice. Well, the human design, you had Glenda on here. And like I'm just a baby student of the human design, but I love using that, and I love working with her and getting people's profiles and getting her to help me coach them. And some of the people, she says to me, look, they need to just do the same thing. They need to stay with one thing. That's their design, and they'll get so much out of that. And then there's other people where it's like, you do that, and they'll go crazy. They just need lots of variation. And so we're made up so differently, and that's why I feel like there's not like a way. You can't say there's no system or model. We've got to look at these things and then find what's right for that individual person. And that's where I feel like we need to bring those kind of intelligences into schooling young people, so we can really honour the way that they do, because everyone does things different ways and learns different ways.
Have you ever thought, why we are all different? Like, you have two different, twins that are almost the same horoscope, and they're still completely different. Like, everyone is so different. Like, who on earth came up with that?
I mean, what do you think?
I think life is way more subtle than we think, or it can be. There's an aspect that is so subtle, and it's a little bit like the chaos theory. Like if this drop actually goes to the other side instead of the leaf down, that leaf, then the flow-on effects changes so many things that it's all different. So I guess the balance of each. Let's say let's assume like a soul actually comes in exactly the same everyone, but then it's like a card house. It's so subtle. It's also subtle that the slightest change of time, of circumstance, creates such a different play field suddenly that we are all completely different. And that's probably, if you then go even deeper and say, like, why would that be? It's like, well, maybe it's just an experiment that makes sure that everyone has their individual experience that they can bring home, or whatever, the meaning of life is. But it might be just a really clever mechanism that just makes sure, like, you will not have the same experience, all of you. This is so fragile that everyone will be so individual.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And do you think we choose when we come in? Do you think we choose, like, what do you think? We get a much range of choice of things, or just...
Well, I believe that we are part of the greater good, so therefore we have agreed on whatever was agreed on. So in that sense, definitely we have a choice, because we partly agreed as a group. Individually, I think we just set up rules that then play out. So in a sense, I'm sure when you're not alive, you understand the rules really well.
Yeah. Yeah. You remember Anita Mujani, what she said when she, she had that near-death experience?
No.
And when she went over to the other side, and she met her father, and she said it was like life before that was like cruising around a big warehouse with a flashlight. And she said then all the lights in the whole warehouse went on. Like, she could just see everything, just like you're saying.
Yes.
And yeah, I feel like it's just be funny. I feel like we'll be laughing. Look at us just going around like this, like trying to navigate with like not much information, and like yeah. And especially like if you look at like I love looking at information. Like you go to the internet, right? There's just so much information. There's conflicting. Everyone's got their ideas. Everyone's got their expertise, and it's like for me, it's like how do you navigate that? And I feel like that's, different again for everyone too. Like some people can be really intuitive with that.
Yeah.
Some people have to respond or get asked questions from someone else. But we need each other, I think, to help do that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think we need to make more kind of decisions with other people helping. And then sometimes we need to burn our own. Like it's like as soon as there's a rule, there's a kind of counter rule that comes in. It's like, I don't know. I feel like we're learning as we go.
Yeah. I think one truth to me is that you have to be true to yourself, and you have to connect to that inner, your heart or whatever that is. Some people probably would call that gut feeling. I don't know. But, having just like a groundedness within yourself. Because I think there's no right and wrong decisions or how you do things, but it's how you experience it. If you're okay with how you did it, that's actually all that matters. And I'm sure, I could imagine, the actors that you work with, if they are okay with how they do things, like completely accept themselves for how they do that, the audience loves it. Whereas if they would say, oh, this is a little bit off, I don't know, hopefully they don't see this, oops, at that moment the audience is like, oh, they are not so good.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Have you ever done any acting?
No.
Yeah.
I'm interested because I think it's just a lot of fun to actually explore the own psyche, hey?
Yeah, I think it's just a great tool to play, and also a beautiful craft. I think it's a very difficult craft.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because there's so many facets to it. I think it's a very complex craft, and I really admire those people that do that well and bring themselves to it.
What do you mean by bring themselves to it?
Well, as the opposite, for example, say you just bring your traumas or emotions or... Yeah, there's just something where you're just completely putting on an act, whereas you get some people where they're almost bringing themselves to that. They're still doing that completely, or their craft, but there's also something of their soul coming through too. Yeah, it's like quite interesting. Yeah.
Can you just quickly explain sort of what fell in crisis? Because now that you're saying, actually,
I really don't feel like I'm.
It's not your expertise.
It's not my. I've done lots of it, but it is becoming aware through movements.
Yeah.
But I'm really not.
Yeah.
It's not my domain of expertise, so I wouldn't want to put my spin on it.
Take
away from the purity of a beautiful work that this guy spent a long time developing.
Yeah.
Around the earlier wartime, and he was working with a lot of soldiers that were getting really fearful going into battle. So he's learning ways to change their nervous system so they weren't going into reflexes, and learn to have choice about how they repattern their body and responded in scary situations. So I mean, there's so much to it.
Yeah. I've seen people who had studied a lot how they would move, how they would get up. There's repattern many things that I would take for granted. This is how you do it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best things to start with repatterning that I've seen. Yeah. I think Alexander technique also has some beautiful repatterning. Yeah, they're good places to start. I mean, the thing is, there's so many great things out there. It's just that we don't know which is, like, in general, people don't know where to go to at what stage, but there's certain things to do, like in an order, you could say, and they're really good things to start with. Yeah, like, you know, if we had a great healthcare system, you'd have a lot of people starting with those things, Alexander and Feldenkrais, and then moving on to slowly different range of motion mobilities, and then building into more strength. Yeah, so it's just interesting.
Cool. Yeah. Well, luckily the internet is there, and I think over time there's a chance that the truth and the things that really work for people, bubbles to the
but the thing is, like, pretty much everything. There's so many things out there that are good, but there is kind of almost like an order to them that makes them much more effective. And like, just as an example, say you only had a small range of motion in your shoulder, and then you start trying to do strength work on that, and you're just going to strengthen that small range of motion. So you wouldn't. But there's all these things where there's good stuff out there, but it could be like different for that person, different for that person. So it's almost more dangerous having all that information, if you know what I mean. Yeah, we definitely need some sort of references. Right. We need some references to know where we are. To know, and I think that if that's built into early education, to people have assessments of where they're at in all these different areas of intelligence, then they can guide themselves. But we need some references of where we are. Where are we in relationship to gravity? Where are we in relationship to our hormones and neurotransmitters? In relationship to our hearts? In relationships to our life purpose? In relationships to our strength and spontaneity and contentedness? And there's so many things we need references for that we're like, wow, there's so many stimuluses outside of ourselves. So I think, I think it will appear if we can work together. I hope so.
I've seen some simple ones, like when I think about sort of my business work, there are tests that I took that would tell me where I'm at and what would be next, and it wouldn't be that jump. You first learn the ropes, and then you unlearn those ropes and learn those ones. And it was just there's sometimes a formula to it, but for me, business, that's really simple. When it comes to the human body and the psyche and all the rest of it, becomes way more complex.
Yeah. And have you looked into the farming much? The different farming
methods? I used to, actually in New Zealand, I was part of the Biodynamic Society. I really enjoyed that, and being German, I'm really happy with Steiner's work, or most of it, and so I did look into that. Something in particular that you're thinking of?
I just think that's an area where we will need to come back to, and especially in terms of like working together. At the moment, I'm really interested in the syntropic agroforestry. Just starting to learn about that, and I'm finding that like really quite fascinating as a kind of quite an resource efficient way to grow food forests. Yeah,
right. But so is that what it is? Mainly food forests. So basically,
and I think it's got a lot of legs for the future. In terms of where we're at now, turning things around. But
is it labor intensive? That's always the thing that when looking at organic or biodynamic, I always wish like there must be a way to do this just not as labor intensive if possible.
Yeah, I think it's quite good. It stacks up quite well compared to other things. And I think there are aspects of like, a bit more intensive in certain parts of it, but I also feel like that's not bad because I feel like it brings us, like being physical around the earth is not a bad thing. It's probably quite good I feel like, if you start it from a young age, learning that kind of stuff, wow, how much easier if we just had all food growing around everywhere.
Wow. And the food, that's right. I have this one thing about growing that's in Anastasia, actually, but I do prescribe to that particular one. That was, if you use the water, your shower water over your plants, they will respond homeopathically? No.
Homeopathy?
Yes. Respond with homeopathy to whatever's coming to them and create the antidote, or figure out, okay, there's a zinc deficiency, and then they produce a little bit more. I mean, I don't know exactly how it works, never looked into the science, but it did make a lot of sense that they would respond to the environment. Stuff like that, and so if, as you say, like if you start as a young child to start to farm, and then eat your own food, they should be pretty good.
Imagine that. Just to be able to get food anywhere, that would be great, wouldn't it? I think just be able to go out and grab food.
in Auckland, they actually have a map of all the free fruit trees. You can put your fruit tree on it if it's close to the road and that type of thing. Also in parks, like there's a couple of avocado parks and, there are parks that have avocados in it. And so you can just look at the map of where you want to go. And
I remember the Cook Islands. So when I first went there, and they have like a common law around food growing. So if someone's growing food, you can just go up onto their property and and it was just like, felt so unusual for me to do that. But after a while, you're like, that's so good. It makes so much sense. Then everyone just grows food, and whenever you need it, you just grab it.
Yeah.
And it's like, everyone was so relaxed there. It's like there's food growing everywhere. You can go and get it. The prison had no like fences or gates or anything. The guys, we went to the prison, the guys were just there like, making ukuleles, and it was just like such a relaxed culture. I was
wow. Yeah.
None of that kind of scarcity or like,
Hey, before I let you go, because an hour passes quickly. I've normally 3 questions that I ask our guests, and one would be, what are the 3 things that get you out of bed every day?
Surfing, if there's surf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People. Yeah, just connecting with friends, like friends and family. I feel like if I've got something like good to look forward to with, even if it's just a dinner with a friend or a group get together or something, that for me is like just, that's super exciting. I think one of the most exciting, I'm just trying to think about times where I've been most excited to get out of bed. And quite often it's where I'm in nature. So I remember I used to live in the Alps and could get up and go snowboarding. That was like really exciting to go with a whole bunch of friends and go up into the Alps and you're like a pack, and you're going on an adventure. For me, that's really, really cool, whether it's a holiday or like we're about to do a retreat. Things in groups, I just love doing things in groups.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's really great. Or even just like a simple bushwalk, like just getting a couple of friends and just going walking in the bush for hours.
Yeah.
But definitely things in nature and things with people really, really get me out of bed. And like work, really, I just love working with people and doing something in some way of service. Like I feel like that is so energizing, and I just love that. I just like. It's such a strange thing, like especially when I hear the more trouble someone's in. I just like, you get this call to action where you just kind of want to be involved, regardless of what happens. And even if I'm just a witness there, it's like I feel like something's happening here, like something good's happening, something big's happening.
Cool.
And I always feel like, when people are really struggling in their lives, that's a really nice thing to know that even just doing something for someone else can make such a difference. Even if it's the last thing you feel so overwhelmed. You can't really cope with your own life. Just doing something for someone else can make a massive difference to your energy, I feel.
Yeah. I've heard recently that the person that gives a compliment, that's right, we had someone on, Dr. Alice. She was talking about that and was saying like the person that gives the compliment gets a dopamine push, I think. The person that receives it gets one too. And the person that observes it as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of learned it the hard way. And when I was younger, I used to really angry and used to like resent things. And then I remember I started to learn about those things. And then I came across that quote, which summed it up for me. It was like, resentment, it's like drinking a cup of poison and hoping the other person dies. And it was like, once I realized I was doing that, I was like, I do not want to poison myself anymore. And I was like, it's like, so much, and when like you say, when you start to think really nice things about other people, you're the one that benefits from it. Yeah, great.
Second question is quite similar, actually. But what would be the favorite thing, or that you have discovered recently? Something that at the moment really excites you. Like, is there something you got into recently?
Like in terms of healing stuff, or just general
life? Yeah.
I love taiko drumming, the big drums.
Yeah. Okay.
I love the big drums. I just love going long walks in the bush, like the barefoot walking.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I love walking, just going for hours.
Yeah.
I just love walking for hours. Something about it, just going into the bush and just walking for hours in the bush. I just find it just amazing. Yeah. And also, I've been doing a little bit of intermittent fasting over the last couple of years, and I've loved that. Yeah.
How would you do that? Like, up to 10 o'clock, like from 5 to 10 or something?
I just go by how I'd feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll stop eating at 5 or 6 and then go through till 10 or 11 or 12, just whatever. And then now not do it. Yeah. But sometimes, do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's not good for everyone. It's not good for everyone at certain times, but sometimes it's feel like it's really good. And but I've loved that whole thing of like, sometimes less is more. Yeah. Yeah. So they're the things I think that I really like at the moment. Yeah.
The last question is, and we touched on that earlier. Why do you think we're here?
Why do you think we're here? I feel like there's, and I know probably a lot of times people think that, but I just feel like we're part of an evolution, and I feel like there is something around consciousness on this planet where we're here to come together and connect. Like we're here to learn to connect with people with differences. And I feel like we've come here. Everyone's got their own unique way of doing that. And I feel like great culture happens when people with differences come together. And I feel like it's really easy to just go, hang out with people of like-minded and into the same things. But I feel like the real juice on the planet is when people with completely different energies, views, things come together and start to connect and harmonize. And I feel like we're here to harmonize all different aspects, however that looks. Yeah, but I feel like it's like an evolving consciousness of higher frequency that can allow that to happen. So I feel like we're here to bring that consciousness higher in some way. Yeah. Anyway, that's my illusion, and it's good to have something like some sort of mission, because I feel like sometimes if I'm on a mission of some kind, even if it's totally delusional, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, we're here to bring ancient knowledge and different cultures together and something, and it's like even if it's just a delusional, it's a great delusion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So,
as long as
like that really gets me out of bed. Do you know what I mean? It's like, today we're on the mission.
So would you say actually that's also sort of part of existence in a sense of just humans actually existing, that there's that, I don't know, that mission of just consciousness sort of colliding?
Yeah, it feels like that for me.
Yeah,
but I don't know, maybe I can't really speak for anyone.
No, fair enough, of course.
Yeah, I can't really speak for anyone else, but it's nice to have something, a greater vision of some kind.
Cool.
I feel, even if it is delusional, it still feels like inspiring. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. Man, there are so many other questions.
We'll probably get to the other side and just laugh and like, let me just see. It's just like it's a simulation, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
We're just programmed, and
I hear that more and more, that people believe that. I'm
could
totally
be.
up for it. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
That would be quite nice.
Might as well have fun anyway. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Whether
you have
or
to
not.
make the most out of it.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. And I would love to, if you're back and ask all the other questions I had written down
Right.
that I didn't ask yet. But thank you so much for sharing so openly and insightful. There is some really gems in terms of things that I would have never thought about it. I'm sure the audience thinks similar. Like, there was great angles. So
Thanks.
thanks.
Sebastian.
Really
I loved
appreciate
it. It's great.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It was fun, hey?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.